The prediction is not that very strange, it just turned out to be a shame. In short, long before YouTube appeared, I accidentally came across a video that showed a very early touchscreen technology. This was the first time I had seen someone zoom in on an image using their fingers. It just made my jaw drop, and deep down, I knew that this topic would blow up the whole world. I really wanted to pour money into this technology, and I even found a German company that produced such screens. So what's the problem? The reason is that I was not yet 18, and I was a scoundrel who didn't know anything about investing. As a result, this German company began to produce components for Apple. Just so you know, that was before the iPod Touch came out. It still haunts me periodically. Watch the promo videos. Perhaps you can see the future in them. The best coin flip of my life. Once in the summer, I specifically fucked up my friends in card games. At one point, they got sick of it and someone said, "You can't win everything, let's try to flip a coin." I laughed and agreed to compete. My friend said that heads would come out. I said that the coin wouldn't even touch the ground. He smiled and flipped a coin. I should add here that initially, I wanted to grab the coin while it was in the air, but as soon as I started moving my hand, some kid running by caught it before me and ran on. I was just dying of laughter that day. One day, a random lady calls and asks me to evacuate cars near a dude's house. I explained to her that I cannot do this without his written consent, because she is not the owner of the property. Then I hang up, make a note about our conversation, and jokingly tell my boss, "I wouldn't be surprised if this is his ex. She's probably trying to get back at him like that." Shortly after that, we receive written permission by fax to remove the car from the yard. The handwriting is clearly feminine, and the signature does not look at all like the one in the other documents of that person. I decided to call him directly and ask if he could personally bring us the permit, just in case. And of course, as soon as I dialed him, he was already yelling into the phone, "That's a bit. Don't touch my cars in any way." Yes, she really was a beaten-up ex who was trying to create problems for him. Once upon a time, I sat on a home theater forum and predicted that over time DVDs would give way to systems with hard drives in which, at the touch of a button, you could access huge collections of movies. I was told that I was an idiot because no one would give up their physical collections, and that no hard drive could hold hundreds or even thousands of films. Fast forward to today. Now it's commonplace. So far, I've accurately guessed the gender of all 4 of my cousin's children. The 5th one is coming. I think it's going to be a boy. I hope I'm right. Updated. No guys, this is not a situation in the spirit of looked at the belly, pregnant mom, and made a choice. I guessed their gender even at the moment when I was just told about pregnancy. Updated 2. A boy was born, 5 out of 5. Before our wedding, I arranged with some band that they would play at our reception. Once upon a time, I was friends with one of its members and knew that they were good and reliable guys. The only problem was that they could only play after dinner, so my wife told me to prepare a playlist for dinner. I've put together a good list for the time before dinner, dinner itself, and between band sets. However, my gut told me that something was definitely going wrong with the music. Call it paranoia. So, just in case, I made another playlist that could play the entire reception. At the same time, my wife did not understand why I was so worried, considering that the issue with music had already been resolved. And then one of the band members' mom dies the day before the wedding. The band can't play. Everything could have turned out to be a disaster with the music, but fortunately, I had prepared just a bombastic playlist. In the end, the wedding went perfectly, and later many praised me for my choice of music. When I first started teaching at the university, I tried to be a cool professor. Once, at my technology lecture, I took out my iPod, trying to make an impression and said, "One day this baby will be able to receive calls." And then I made a few more predictions that sounded completely unconvincing. And now, 4 years have passed, bam, iPhone. There are about 50 people living right now who consider me to be something like a prophet. And all the other students I've lectured with think I'm an idiot. But I'm also happy with the small victories. Korra and Asami's relationship. During the 2nd season of Avatar, The Legend of Korra, I began to notice that the creators seemed to be setting the stage for a romantic relationship between Korra and Asami. And it was strange because the show was played on Nickelodeon, which has never been known for its love of LGBT people. But all the movie tricks were in place. The way they talk to each other, the way the camera freezes on them. And yes, it's an animation, so you can't do that by accident. If the camera freezes, it means it was done intentionally. I remember saying to my wife while watching, "I think we're being groomed for a lesbian relationship between these two." And then at the end of the season, it turned out that I was right. I immediately told my fiancé that it was a bad idea to have a wedding, because everyone around us would tell us how and what was best to do. And in the end, it would not be our wedding, but their wedding. 2 months later, yesterday, she sits, looks at me, and sobs because more and more people are going to come, although invitations should have been answered much earlier. "You were right, we should have just gone and signed," she told me. It's not exactly a strange prediction, and I'm not happy about it, but at least it's nice that she recognized that I was right. And yes, we're still getting married, and there's going to be a wedding. It's just that our family sucks. Going and signing is the best solution. I'm telling you as someone who did the same thing almost 20 years ago and is still happily married. Yes, we weren't given gifts, but let's be honest. You need to be lucky to win back a wedding at least to zero. I've seen a dozen weddings in my life, but none of them struck me as interesting, and none of them seemed worth the effort. I've always said that Mom's unhealthy jokes about how she wants me to live with her until I'm 40 and not start a relationship until I'm pulled down by otherworldly forces were not jokes, but her real attitude to my growing up and desire to become an independent person. And what do you think? At the age of 21, I got a girlfriend. And on the same day that my mother found out that we had kissed, our relationship became 100 times more difficult because my mother began to limit our communication and the time when we could see each other and eventually forced me to leave her altogether. Don't get me wrong. Now I'm already thinking that my girlfriend was a total bitch. But it seems to me that this situation would have happened regardless of who I started dating. When I was a kid, I watched Home Alone 2. When Donald Trump was briefly shown on the screen, for some reason I pointed my finger at the TV and shouted, "Is this the president?" As a child, I had no idea who the real president was. My parents told me about this case when it just became clear that Trump was running. And I wished more than ever that I was wrong in my predictions. I was booking seats on the plane for myself, my wife, and my then unborn daughter. I was still 6 months away from giving birth, but the system wouldn't let me leave the date of birth blank, so I had to enter a random day. As it turned out, I guessed right. I guessed my daughter's birthday 6 months before the deadline.